I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
And a hello everyone, and welcome to another Westerosi Ninja Election 2020 video. In this video, I will be given a high-level summary of the 6th Democratic Party presidential debate that happened last night, with a rating for each of the candidates' performances. I would also like to stress that any opinions given by me in this video are not necessarily representative of those of current collaborators nor featured guests on this channel, as I do live streams and videos on a variety of different subjects. As usual, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe if you do, and leave any feedback in the comment section below. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with just a couple of general comments about what happened last night. This was definitely the most substantive of the debates held so far, and this is the 6th one. Okay, so a wide variety of issues was discussed, okay, without the usual fluff of questions requiring a show of hands or asking, what would you say to Vladimir Putin in your first day of office? Yeah, I'm looking at you, MSNBC, for those kind of things. Whether it was due to the lesser number of candidates on stage or just the quality of the moderators themselves is up for debate. I mean, I think it's a mixture of the two myself. But it is totally amazing how smarter and more relevant questions by moderators who are like unbeholden to corporate interests can make a debate worth watching and actually improve the quality of these debates. So yeah, great job by PBS and Politico for holding the debate last night. Really enjoyed it, and the content was miles above what we've seen before, especially last month. So let's go ahead and start with what happened last night. Let's get into the kind of like high-level summary here. Okay, so the duration was about 2.5 hours. Okay, which is pretty much on the average of all the rest of the debates. The nice thing was, of course, there's less people on stage, so there's more speaking time per person. Location was at the Gersten Pavilion at the campus of Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, California. Partners, PBS NewsHour and Politico. And the moderators were Judy Woodruff, Amno Nawaz, and Yamiche Alcindor of PBS, and Tim Alberto of Politico. All right, so these were the participants last night. There were 7 of them, and we had Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, Joseph Biden, Bernie Sanders, Amy Klobuchar, and Tom Steyer. They were laid out roughly in order of their national polling averages, and you can see that the top 3 candidates really in terms of average polling numbers are really Joseph Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren, and they were sort of like put in the middle of the stage. And you had more of the lower tier candidates like Andrew Yang, Amy Klobuchar, Tom Steyer, and Mayor Pete Buttigieg towards the wings. And that's pretty much it. So let's see whether or not the total speaking time that each of these candidates have is actually consistent with their place in terms of national polling averages. And as usual, it's not. So what we have here is Bernie Sanders came out ahead in terms of the total talk time last night with about 20 minutes and 18 seconds worth of talk. Then, for whatever reason, we have Amy Klobuchar, who's polling at 3.1% nationally, in second place with 19 minutes and 54 seconds. Pretty much a tie with Bernie in terms of the most talk time. Then we have Elizabeth Warren at 19 minutes and 23 seconds. Then Pete Buttigieg at 19 minutes and 12 seconds. Then we have kind of a big dip down to Joe Biden at 15 minutes and 28 seconds, which is pretty good for Joe, because the less he speaks, the less chances of him, basically gaffing. Then we have another big drop, basically to Tom Steyer at 11 minutes and 46 seconds. And coming up in the last again, as usual, is my guy Andrew Yang at 10 minutes and 47 seconds, roughly about 9.3% of the average of the total speaking time. So, yeah, I mean, not surprising here. We have Bernie Sanders, who actually was a lot more aggressive and a lot more assertive last night, in the lead, followed by a lot of the establishment candidates, of course. Yes, I consider this before an establishment candidate, and more of the anti-establishment and more vilified candidates, sort of like Tom Steyer, towards the bottom of the talk time lists. And yeah, it's a shame that Andrew Yang doesn't get as much talk time. I think it's a combination of two things. One is that he's not very assertive in terms of his debate style, so he doesn't go back and forth a lot with anybody. He doesn't mention anybody's names really, or, in terms of an attack. And by definition, if you don't attack anybody by name, you really can't debate with an individual, and you can't take up more time as a result of that. Um, because I think, mostly everybody got the same number of questions. The key differences were how you were attacking people and whether or not you were attacked. Because again, if you are attacked or referenced by name, you get a chance to respond, and that actually drives up your total talk time value. Another thing about Andrew Yang is that he's very succinct in how he answers questions, unlike the constant rambling of some of these other candidates. I'm looking at you, Amy Klobuchar, for that. So anyway, so that's what we have in terms of the total talk time here. This is a great chart. I love this chart by the New York Times. It basically goes through all the issues that were discussed last night and who actually was able to actually address these issues. Again, this was the most substantive debate, this entire year, and it was great to see, the variety of different questions that were discussed. So, in terms of the issues that were actually discussed last night, we had questions on foreign policy, party strategy, the economy, climate change. Of course, impeachment, healthcare electability, immigration, human rights, and racial equality. And you can actually see on the left-hand side, basically by row, basically the candidates who were able to talk about these issues and how much time they were able to basically talk about these issues. And of course, the blank areas are ones in which they didn't have a chance to actually talk about certain issues. And it looks like the only two people that were able to talk about this whole range of issues were Bernie Sanders and Amy Klobuchar, which makes sense because they had the most talk time as well. Then Pete Buttigieg was able to talk about everything except for healthcare, which is actually a good thing for him, considering his healthcare plan is pretty much the same as Joe Biden's. Elizabeth Warren wasn't able to talk about electability, immigration, and racial equality. Joe Biden was able to talk about human rights and racial equality. Tom Steyer wasn't able to talk about three things: healthcare, electability, and racial equality. And Andrew Yang wasn't able to talk about three things as well, which is the party strategy, healthcare, and electability. And but anyway, great. I love this chart. Shows who was able to talk the most about the most things. So yep, that is pretty much it. So Bernie Sanders, and Amy Klobuchar were the two that were able to basically talk about everything that was actually addressed last night. So let's get into now the report card. Okay, as usual, if you see my previous videos here, I grade each candidate's performances based on the number of Westerosi Ninja avatars. So if you got one Westerosi Ninja avatar, you were pretty much a train wreck, in my opinion. Two, weaker than expected. Three, meh, but okay, I guess. Four is a good performance. And 5 stars, breakout performance. I'll tell you right now that nobody got a 1 or a 2. I think everybody did a pretty good job yesterday. Nobody made a major gaffe, but also nobody actually broke out. I mean, you can hear some pundits, after the debate saying that so-and-so had a breakout performance. One person that's the media seem to be hyping up now is Amy Klobuchar. But if you if you dig down deep into what she's actually saying, I'm not sure if it deserves the the breakout praise that a lot of the media is actually putting on her. So let's go ahead and start with the lowest polling candidates to the frontrunners here. So we're going to start out with, of course, Tom Steyer here. Business executive and philanthropist, and central issues. I said this before, I say this on every video I do, is basically fighting climate change, promoting renewable energy, and impeachment. He was the impeachment guy, but since the impeachments happened, now he's pivoted into being the climate change guy of the entire stage, and he's actually taken that ball and ran with it. So evidently that is his lane right now. His national RTP average is 1.3. Okay, so he is the lowest of everyone on the stage. Talk time of 11 minutes and 46 seconds. Which is okay. It correlates to his standing in terms of the national polling averages. Okay, I give him 3 stars. Meh, but okay. I think he did better than his first 2 previous debates that he was in. But here's the issue with Tom Steyer. Okay, he's a billionaire. And he's running against candidates who have vilified billionaires, the richest Americans. Okay, and also last night, in addition to previous nights that he's been on the stage, he still hasn't been able to tell the nation and the audience why he is actually running for president. Okay, is it a climate change guy? Okay, if it is, I mean, he supports wealth taxes and corporations paying more taxes. But yet he never addresses the dichotomy between those issues and his own wealth. Okay, he is the billionaire here. So I'm trying to figure out, he says, yeah, I support all this stuff, wealth taxes, corporations should pay more. But yet, he's taken advantage. He's personally taken advantage of all these, tax loopholes and being a billionaire to basically create influence. So he needs to be able to address this dichotomy, okay, between his own wealth and these issues that he's standing on, these anti-establishment, anti-rich issues that he's standing on, and actually be clear as to why he's running. And he hasn't done that yet, unfortunately. I mean, he's falling into the whole Michael Bloomberg thing, too. Michael Bloomberg, he's actually polling higher than several of these candidates, but he didn't qualify for the debate stage only because he's basically has no grassroots fundraising support, nor does he want it. So, without addressing this dichotomy between him being a billionaire and all these anti-billionaire, policies, stances that he's for, it basically creates an air of an air of fakeness and phoniness, and he needs to be able to address that properly before I can actually take him seriously. Really, I mean, he's just basically spending a bunch of money on TV ads right now, like $80 million of his own wealth, and still don't know why he's running, but that's Tom Steyer for you. So hopefully he can actually talk about this a little bit more in terms of his own personal feelings about why he's running. Let's get into our next candidate. Yep, good old Andrew Yang, math rules, signature issues, establishing the universal basic income of $1,000 per month for all Americans. Basically, as you know, it is the UBI and or freedom dividend that he likes to talk about. And in all these debates, he always comes off as the most genuine of all the candidates that we see, okay, and the most relatable and likable, in my opinion. And the way he answers questions and his responses to questions are so much more different than any of the other usual platitudes that the rest of the candidates talk about, and it's very, 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 very refreshing. He was the only person of color on the stage, okay, depending on what your definition, of a person of color is, because the media would tell you one thing and others would tell you different things about what defines a person of color. But, I thought it was great when he addressed that one point where, his answer in being the lone non-white candidate on stage, he called it an honor and a disappointment as well. I thought it was very, very eloquent. His answer, again, as I was saying, are miles and miles away from how his rivals answer them, and I think that's great because it actually draws a line of distinction between his campaign and others' campaign, and the way he thinks about certain issues and and solutions to the issues versus others. I mean, again, you don't get the normal platitudes as you would with other establishment candidates here. In terms of special needs, I thought it was great. Again, he likes to talk about the fact that he is raising a child with, autism, but yet he's the only one on the stage that actually has personal experience about that and how best to address those challenges of raising, special needs children here. He also had, in my opinion, the most underrated and poignant statement of the entire night. Okay, when he said that most people, okay, not just the candidates, but people in general in America confuse economic value versus human value. Our society basically praise the rich, because of how much money they are, and everyone wants to be rich because if you're rich, you have credibility and you're obviously a better person than somebody who doesn't have as much money as you do. And the only person, nobody else on stage actually got that or actually talked about that, except for actually Bernie Sanders. So I mean, I think those two are the people that are actually more humanist in terms of their outlook on society, versus the other candidates. And that's actually very refreshing and actually makes them very appealing to a lot of people, I believe. Anyway, he also had a he also had a lot of great one-liners. When they were talking about whether politics needed more women, Yang said this: the fact is, if you have too many women alone in a room and leave us alone for a while, we kind of become morons. So I thought that was pretty cool, and yeah, and also, I didn't expect this, but I loved it when he attacked Pete Buttigieg in terms of closed door, fundraising for the rich, and talking about how he basically shakes the money tree in a wine cave. I thought that was great. But anyway, we'll talk more about Pete Buttigieg later. But anyway, I thought you did a great job. I give him four ninjas for this. Again, with the limited numbers of speaking time, he really gets his point across a lot, and he just distincts himself from everyone else on stage. He just differs himself from everyone on stage, which is great, in terms of attracting voters, because if voters can't distinguish you from other people on the stage, they're generally going to just vote on name recognition and who they know, i.e. Joe Biden, and that's pretty much it. So anyway, good job, Andrew. 4 stars for you, or 4 ninjas for you. Okay, our next candidate is none other than Amy Klobuchar, the candidate that the media is trying to hype up and tell you and basically make happen. That's Amy K. Make happen, Amy Clay here. U.S. Senator from Minnesota. Signature issues: opioid crisis, drug addiction, addressing the cost of prescription drugs, as well as basically supporting the centrist stances on a bunch of other issues, which isn't dissimilar to, say, Joe Biden. RCP average 3.1. Okay, the same tied with Andrew Yang. Total talk time last night. She came in second and barely out of first place with 19 minutes and 54 seconds. So we have a person averaging 3.1% nationally, yet has the second most talk time of them all, and barely the second most. I mean, she's only like maybe 25 seconds away from Bernie Sanders in terms of reclaiming that top spot here. Okay, now, besides that point, which I have an issue with, okay, let's talk about her performance yesterday. I thought it was good. I mean, again, she reinforced the idea that she is the true Goldilocks candidate of the field. She checks all the boxes of what the Democratic Party wants in a candidate. She's not left, she's not right, but just right. And the bonus is that she's a woman. So, and she spent most of her time basically, driving home that basic message. She's from the Midwest. she can get those working class people to, unite them. She's a woman, and also she gets things done. She talked a lot about, all the pieces of legislation that she's passed during her, like I think 2 terms or 3 terms as a U.S. senator, and you can't ignore that. I mean, she does get things done, and she is a very, she is willing to compromise with the other side of the aisle quite a bit here. She, being a centrist candidate, being an establishment favorite, she actually benefited a lot, by having less people on stage because then, the moderators can just go to her and just basically ask her a bunch of questions. You know, she started out strong, okay. She tried to convince, she told a party line on impeachment that seems to basically, um, I guess, appeal to a lot of people in America. Um, my issue with her, okay, is that she kind of has the same message in all the debates. She's basically, her basic, which is her basic message. I'm from the Midwest. I'm a woman. I get things done. She just had a lot more time to talk about those things right now. Issue is that these are exactly the same messages that Joe Biden has, who's the front runner, and the only key difference is that she's from the Midwest and she's a woman. I would like to see her talk about the differences between her and other centrists, you know, candidates like Joe Biden to really be taken a little bit more seriously and actually have people come up and vote for her. I have an issue with that. I hope she actually talks about that a little bit more. I expect her, to actually get a surge of votes after last night's performance because I think, with that, with the total talk time that she had, I think a lot of people actually know about her a little bit more, and maybe she can actually sway, more voters towards her campaign. Uh, she really took it to Mayor Pete Buttigieg here. It was Mayor Pete mentioned about something about he basically dismissed basically committee work in the Senate and in Congress in general, and Amy went after her because again, she actually did talk about her record, Joe Biden's record, Elizabeth Warren's record, and Bernie Sanders' record as current senators, and what they've done, in terms of their service, and I like that a lot. And she made a really really good point about how when Pete said that he was the only he was a gay dude, basically who's in Mike Pence's Indiana, and he's actually won public office there. And then she just said, well, when last time you ran for a statewide office, not the mayor, you lost by 25 points. So there went his argument about being a winner. So anyway, it was a good job. It wasn't great. So I gave her 3 ninjas for that. Again, she needs to do more, I think, to distinguish herself from the other centrists, especially Joe Biden, if she really wants to get ahead and actually, retain this momentum that she's getting, that the media is actually given to her for all, for the basically for all this dog time that she's getting here. So, great, good job. 3 stars. You go, Amy K. One last point about Amy K. She really needs to work on, I think, the perception that all her jokes and one-liners are actually scripted. So be a little bit more organic and freewheeling with your time, Amy, and not as scripted, because I think doing that will, again, distinguish yourself from the other centrists, running for the presidency. Next candidate, yep, good old Mayor Pete Buttigieg of South Bend, Indiana. Central issues, generational identity, and focus on economic opportunity. RCP average about 9.1, total talk time 19 minutes and 12 seconds here. So he had a lot of talk time. He finished, I think, 3rd or 4th. I think it was actually 4th here, right behind Elizabeth Warren. I give him 3 stars here. I mean, he was attacked left and right all night last night. And I think he actually went with the punches pretty well. I mean, I think he was actually prepared more than anything else for these attacks. Being kind of like the late upcomer and a leader actually in the Iowa caucuses right now, and second place, I believe, in the New Hampshire primaries. So I think he was expecting that, and then he had comebacks to a lot of different attacks. But some of the attacks were actually rang true a little bit, actually rang deep. I call him Mr. Wine Cave now, right? Because he had a fundraiser, a closed door fundraiser with a lot of rich donors in a wine cave. I didn't even know what a wine cave was until last night. Evidently, it's a cave with a bunch of expensive wine that's basically laid out with crystals everywhere and really expensive stuff. $900 bottles of wine, according to Elizabeth Warren here. So he likes to appeal to the ultra rich. His comeback, of course, is that he doesn't want to exclude anyone from his campaign, including the ultra rich. Which is admirable. But every time you have these big rich donors, their worries and concerns and agenda are going to be different than normal mainstream America, and that will always bring up questions about who is actually influencing the candidate later on if he does become president. But anyway, he's he was charming as usual, his Midwest charm, and his campaign of general change, which doesn't go into specifics, just likes to talk about party unity, how I'd be great in foreign policy, how I would be great in terms of addressing immigration, just very, very general stuff, nothing ever deep, okay, because that's the way he rolls. He's still insecure, I believe, about his lack of experience, and when he tried to address, the fact that, the current Congress isn't doing great or doing much, he basically got attacked again, and attacked hugely of the fact that he doesn't have any experience, and these people with experience actually have a record to run on. Um, you know, what can we say about Pete? Again, at times he comes across as overly rehearsed, but that's that's Pete, so that's not surprising there. Let's see, anything else about him? I guess at the end of the day, he wasn't the train wreck, or he didn't really do that poorly given the amount of income and fire that he got. So I think his campaign overall should be happy that he actually survived relatively unscathed, except for the wine cave, hashtag wine cave. And but he did take some hits for the first time. I'm still surprised that nobody has gone after him about the fake black endorsements of his Douglas plan, and but I'm not sure we're ever going to talk about that unless he actually wins the nomination, and actually gets into the more general presidential debates. Let's get into our next candidate here. So 3 stars for Pete. Next candidate here. Yep, Elizabeth Warren. Censure issues, income inequality, regulating big corporations, and political corruption. She's actually fallen from last month. She was a RCP of about 20.8 or whatever, and now she's fallen down to 15.9. Basically, this coincides with people such as surge, and that's because I think they're actually fighting for the same type of voters in the electorate, which are basically the affluent, liberal, elite, if you will. So she runs a more progressive policy platform, but we've seen it already since basically during her fall from the upper tier, or from being a front runner, that she's actually pivoting towards the center on a lot of issues such as healthcare. She did an okay job. I mean, 19 minutes and 23 seconds, but we've seen this act from her before, though. I give her 3 stars. Just like Pete Buttigieg, we've seen this act from her before. She has that kind of Midwestern oh shucks kind of attitude that actually appeals to a lot of people, and she just goes into her policies and the details of her policies were not workable or not workable. She doesn't speak as plainly as the other, progressive on stage, which is Bernie, in terms of, healthcare costs, immigration and whatnot. I think her focus is more about, income inequality and wealth taxes and basically rooting out political corruption. She was a lot more aggressive yesterday, so I give her that. I mean, this is the first time where she actually went on the attack and actually attacked the person that's actually stealing her votes or competing with votes, though, from the same electorate, part of the electorate, which is the white affluent liberals, which is Pete Buttigieg. She was the one about the, pointing, she basically attacked him about the wine cave, about the closed door fundraisers and whatnot. But, then Pete actually went ahead and actually made a great point about, well, Elizabeth Warren was actually doing the same, before she actually decided to run for president, where she had closed door fundraisers and she had, large donations from billionaires, and large corporations. So, in that case, it was kind of a draw. But it was good to see her more aggressive. Okay. I liked her response yesterday on special needs, right after Andrew Yang talked about, his personal experience. She also has personal experience as being a special needs teacher, and, which was great. Yeah. Still, what she needs to do, and she hasn't done yet, is that, okay, so what she needs to do is actually distinguish herself from Mayor Pete, obviously, because they're actually fighting for the same people in terms of the white affluent liberals. But she also needs to distinguish herself from Bernie, and she hasn't done that yet. As fighting for votes in the progressive wing, of the party here. She's not doing that yet. She hasn't attacked Bernie yet, but I think she needs to, because her campaign is kind of faltering a bit. I'm not sure if it's plateaued yet, hit a floor, or whether it's going to keep on dropping with the rise of Pete and Bloomberg coming in there. But we shall see what's going to happen later on, especially in Iowa. I think Iowa and New Hampshire are going to be very, very important for her versus relative to the other candidates. I think, these first two primaries days are critical, or the most critical for Elizabeth Warren. Not talking about like the other lower tier candidates. So 3 stars for Elizabeth. And let's get into our next candidate here. Yeah, good old Bernie, U.S. Senator from Vermont. My mean old uncle. Same two issues: Medicare for all, free college tuition, and curtailing the influence of billionaires. RCP average about 18.6. Total talk time. He was the front runner yesterday in terms of talk time, with 20 minutes and 18 seconds. And this is the first time I've seen Bernie as animated on stage as he was last night. I think he was great, in terms of being animated. He proved that he was actually funny. He was telling jokes. He based Joe Biden, I think, when they were talking about healthcare. Joe Biden told Bernie to basically put his hand down, and then Bernie goes, well, hey, I was just saying hi to you, Joe, waving hello. So I thought it was pretty funny. So he did show kind of a more human side of of his personality, and a more funny side of his personality. Again, I think the issue, I'm only giving him 3 stars though, because I think he's running into the same issue as a lot of candidates here. Is that no matter what question that's asked of him, he always seems to give the same answer. Things like millionaires and billionaires and large corporations are destroying this country. And if you support Bernie, he'll do good for you. The working class, the oppressed. He did. But the problem is that he keeps on saying this stuff, but yet by basically constantly saying this stuff, he doesn't have a chance to expand his base. Unfortunately, he's never going to take Biden voters by saying this stuff. He's never going to, and he needs to do that, because his base, the vociferous base that he has right now. Okay, the hardcore supporters, and he has a huge hardcore supporting populace, are never gonna move to him. Okay, they may actually just rather stay home to him, because he doesn't appeal to the centrist part of the party because of the way he responds to questions, and I think he needs to pivot a little bit about that, or make himself more amenable and more attractive to, I hate to say it, but the centrist establishment here, if he wants to get farther ahead. Um, so we shall see what happens. He had he had a really weird response actually to that question about Barack Obama's assessment that the country needed younger, and more diverse leaders, and then he, the I guess that question was actually asked of him first, and then of course he raised his hand up and said, "I'm white too," and that wasn't the point because Barack Obama wasn't saying racially diverse. He was more talking about old people, and old people running the government will cause staleness in the country and the Congress. I thought that was kind of funny. That kind of fell flat. He got shut down by one of the debate moderators for trying to pivot from a question about race to talk about the climate crisis. I blame that more on the moderators themselves because I don't think they actually asked him about the climate crisis, and I think he has a lot to talk about the climate crisis here. But he did actually interject on other things to talk about it, so he actually did well there. So he did an okay job. I didn't think it was great. I think he showed himself off as being more, he showed his personality a little bit more, right? I mean, he says that he does have a sense of humor, but he just needs to break out of the anti-establishment, anti-rich, and rich, anti-corporations, kind of spiel, and basically get into and try to attract more people. Otherwise, he's just gonna have that hardcore base with him, and that doesn't really hold well for the party nomination. It may be better for the general election, but the party nomination, you can't run for the presidency, unless you actually win the party nomination. So, but Bernie's going to be Bernie, and he's been saying the same thing for 40 years, and even if you disagree with his politics, he's never going to change. So that's very admirable for that. So let's get into our last candidate here and our front runner, and that's Uncle Joe Biden, former Vice President of the United States. Central issue: restoring America's standing on the global stage, and I have to put in what his healthcare policy is. Basically, it's building on the Affordable Care Act. And his first thing is something that's passable, which is instituting a public option for Medicare. Anyway, RCP average 27.0. His talk time was a little bit less, about 4 minutes less than the front runner from the other front runners, if you will. You have Warren, Sanders, Buttigieg. I mean, I don't call Klobuchar a front runner, but yeah, she had 19 minutes. I mean, and all four of them had about 19 minutes, right, and above. Then there was this big drop of 4 minutes to Joe Biden, who had about 50 minutes and 28 seconds of talk time. And the thing about Joe Biden is that the less talk time he gets is actually better for him, okay? Because and then he doesn't. Because we all know about Joe, right? We all love Joe, but if you give him a chance to talk, he's gonna say something really, really bad or something really, really dumb. And fortunately for him, he didn't say anything dumb. That's why I'm giving him 4 stars, because he set a very low bar for himself in terms of debate performances, and he actually exceeded that bar by a lot yesterday. Not sure if it's because he had a lack of talk time or if it was because he was more coherent, like he had a couple of extra cups of coffee. But whatever, it was good. I mean, in terms of his performance, I would say that he basically had, more confidence in his status of a front runner than before. And I'm not sure if it's because there were less people on stage, so he actually felt more comfortable with it. But he definitely appeared more confident. Let's see. He seemed a lot more coherent. There weren't these kind of pivots in mid-sentence, from the topic at hand that he normally did. It was definitely his best debate. he had a good answer, even though it was kind of canned in terms of, on the need to basically build consensus and work with you know, uh, work with Republicans the other side of the aisle as president, and noting that, he more than anybody else is actually being attacked the most by Republicans with the whole impeachment, Hunter Biden mess going on right now, and that was a great answer, and it was probably his best answer in any of the debates. Um, his response to the Barack Obama assessment about whether or not the country is going stale because there's too many old people in government, I thought was great because he mentioned that his age was something that actually brought people much needed experience and wisdom. I think that was, and he actually didn't actually stumble through that. He was actually very self-assured and very solid with that response. So anyway, overall, he was, to me, a lot more confident and a lot more competent, both C's, than normal. So I think that was actually a good thing for Joe. And I loved his exchange with Bernie about Medicare for all, because that one issue is what is basically, that one issue best represents the divide between his platform and the centrist platform, and the progressive platform, the party, and voters need that. Voters need simplicity. They need a difference, and those two are the clear front runners, and those two have the biggest difference of opinion when it comes to healthcare. So, and people need to see that. So, yeah, I thought that was great, and I thought he did well with that argument. So I think him 4 stars for this. I mean, his bar wasn't very high to begin with, but he exceeded the bar by quite a bit. So that is it for Joe, and that is it for the candidate report cards here. Let's see what the wheel says about who won last night's 6th presidential debate, Democrat debate here. So we got the seven wedge wheel, and let's go ahead and start. It's playing the Star Spangled Banner in my head right now, and Rocket's Red Glare, so start right now. So the wheel thinks Joe Biden won, and I really can't disagree with that, because Joe Biden came out of it unscathed, and Joe Biden wins by not talking a lot. Okay, so, and I said earlier during the analysis, of his performance, he came across as more confident and more competent than usual. So, yeah, I agree with you, Will, for once about this. Joe Biden being the winner. So, yeah, good job, Will, for that. And let's get into what's going to happen further down the road in the next couple months here. And here it is. Okay, so we did the December debate last night, and we are going to look forward to the January 2020 debate that's going to occur on the 14th of January, and it will be held roughly 2 weeks before the Iowa caucuses, the first vote in the primary season. And it's going to be held in Des Moines, Iowa, with CNN and the Des Moines Register. I got some more details about that later on. Then, coming up in February is a packed month, guys. A really packed month here. We got votes going to happen in Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. Okay, which is going to set the tone for the rest of the campaign season, right up to Super Tuesday. Which basically Super Tuesday is actually 2 weeks from South Carolina, or a week from South Carolina, and that's going to be like a bunch of delegates going to be up for grabs there. But this is definitely going to set the tone in February, and basically related to each of these votes, these early state votes, we have a separate debate right beforehand. So we got a debate coming up February the 7th. Before New Hampshire. We got a debate coming up February the 19th before Nevada, and we got a debate coming up February the 25th before South Carolina. So a lot of debates a lot of votes, and I think it's gonna be a lot of work for me to basically keep pumping out these videos, unfortunately. So hopefully I'll have time and energy to do this, because it'll be really hard to keep track of a lot of this stuff in February, but I'll do my best, of course. So let's get into what we know about the next debate then, okay, which I talked earlier is going to be on January the 14th, 2020. It'll be the 7th one. The location against Des Moines, Iowa. The venue has been determined to be at Drake University in Des Moines. The partners are going to be CNN and the Des Moines Register, so no MSNBC, thank goodness there. We have no moderators yet specified, but we kind of know who they're going to be. We know Anderson Cooper is going to be one of them, probably Donna Bash, and probably somebody else. And interesting thing is that usually I would know what the qualifications are for the 7th debate, but that actually hasn't been put out yet. More than likely it's going to be a little bit more strict than what they were for the 6th debate, but I think the Democratic National Party is kind of worried now a little bit in terms of how strict they want the qualifications to be, because we all heard the story about Cory Booker sending a note out to the DNC saying that it should be less strict because for obvious self-serving purposes, right? He didn't qualify, and because of the qualifications requirements, and he needs it to be less strict so he can actually qualify, get on stage, and actually have his campaign continue. But getting away from that point, all the other candidates actually did support Cory Booker and actually signed their name to basically say that the qualifications should be dropped down, for the 7th presidential debate, only because it's 2 weeks ahead of the Iowa, caucuses, which is like the first vote, right, of the entire election season. So it's kind of important for that, to have everybody on stage for that. Everybody has an opinion on that. No, I have an opinion on that. I don't think everybody should be allowed to be on stage. I think they should deserve to be on stage. And nobody complained about it back in February when the DNC actually made up these requirements. So why are they complaining about it now? Well, obviously it's because they're not qualifying for it now. So but I can see both sides of that issue, and basically I say good luck to the candidates next month and in the new year, and basically hopefully that can be worked out and we get our candidates to attend that debate and pass those qualifications. So that is pretty much it, guys. Thanks a lot for coming out and watching this video again. Really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. And if you haven't subscribed to me yet, please subscribe to my channel, because it's not just about politics or bad politics. It's about other things too. So and you'll see that in the playlists of my channel. And with that, again, have a great day. Have a great rest of the holiday season, and I will see you back in the new year for more Election 2020 videos, amongst other things. So, see you later.
I'm not going to stop the wheel. I'm going to break the wheel.
Ultra Ninja JK, dupla jinxa, bota chakra em cada linha de faca. Face, macramé no micado, base, espadas por frases. Sintático, repara no que digo, é paradigmático. Não tenho paralelo, sou para lá de mágico. Sabes como rolo, martelo pneumático. Técnica secreta do monstro roxo. Estamos a meter-nos no dojo, estamos a manter combos no jogo, só com uma espada nos tojos. Plano picado, não sabes de onde esta ave vem. Nenhum radar pode detectar onde está a nave mãe, tu sabes bem. Somos a clique, somos o clã. É Monster Jeans cabrão, respeito ou vais comer tartan. Na terra do nunca não digo banzai. Vivo na espelunca e tenho um bonsai. Ninja que é ninja, ninja, frotas imperiais. E bate mal, logo bate mais. A minha crew não sem espelhos. Na rua, dragão azul, dragão vermelho. Sente o silêncio. Verso shinobi, nunca me canso. Sou de Nairobi, ágil como um ninja. Rápido como um ninja, letal como um ninja. Brutal como um ninja, fatal como um ninja. Forte como um ninja, secreto como um ninja. Devo mesmo ser um ninja.
Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus?
Ninjas, 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 ninjas. Esta é para os meus ninjas, só para os meus ninjas. Onde é que estão os meus? Ninjas, 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 ninjas.